Good morning, I'm Dave Strobel with Durango Fire and Rescue. I'm the Deputy Fire Marshal, and today we are at El Moro Tavern to do an informational video on what the fire department looks for during a fire inspection. We inspect restaurants and bars on a 3-year basis, and so we'll be coming through all the restaurants and bars this year, and so now you'll know kind of the things we're going to be looking for in the kitchen. First and foremost, when we're looking at a hood, we want to make sure we get certain documents. And so we'll be asking for, one, your hood suppression system. So we have these nozzles, and we also have over here the suppression system. We'll be asking for the documents for that to make sure it's inspected on a regular basis. It's required to be inspected every 6 months, and so we'll be asking not only for that, but we'll be asking for the hood cleaning. So you'll see that this is tagged here. Your hood should have a tag on it that says that it's cleaned at regular intervals. So we'll be looking to see how dirty your hood is, and we'll be asking for cleaning documents as well. When we go through and we look at your cooking line, there's certain things we're going to want to be looking at. So one is we want to make sure that these suppression nozzles are in place and they're protecting the appliance that it's designed for. As we move down through the hood, we have filters that are up in here. And if you look at this specific filter, when you have the expanded metal, that is designed specifically for fuel-fired, solid fuel-fired appliances. So if you're cooking with wood, you have to have a certain filter in there that captures embers, and that's what that expanded metal does. And then as we come down through the line here, we'll be looking up in the hood here to make sure these filters are in place and that they're clean. And so all these filters are in the correct orientation. Those slats move down so that grease drains down into the cups. You can see a grease catch cup down here. We'll make sure those cups are in place. And then each appliance, make sure it has the correct nozzle placement over each appliance. And we'll be also looking for cable restraints. So if you have a movable piece of equipment, we have to make sure there's a cable restraint back there so that when you're moving the appliance out, it doesn't extend the length of the gas line and then pop the gas line loose. So you should have a cable back there that prevents that. As we look at our nozzles, we'll notice that it has some protective caps on these nozzles. And these protective caps are supposed to be in place. And that's because the orifice in here is open. And we don't want grease migrating through that open orifice and up into these open pipes because it will clog them up. So again, we'll look and make sure that all the nozzles are in place over each of the appliances, and we'll also make sure that you have the appliance in the appropriate location. So when you move an appliance out, it has to go back into the exact location, and the suppression system is only effective if this nozzle is placed directly at the appliance. And so what we require is that there's some sort of device that keeps that appliance in place, like a caster keeper or another bracket, so that when you slide the appliance back in place, it always goes back in the exact same location so that these nozzles are hitting directly where they're supposed to during a fire. So one of the other things that we look at with the suppression system is we want to make sure that it's inspected regularly and has a tag on it. The tag has to say that the suppression system will be operational, and so these tags will be different colors. This tag here indicates that the system is operational. If you see a red tag on it, it means there's a deficiency, and we want to make sure that that deficiency is corrected. We also have this extinguisher here. This extinguisher is specifically designed for kitchen fires and is supposed to be used in conjunction with the suppression system. So the idea is if you have an uncontrollable fire on your kitchen hood, you pull this pull station and then you grab this extinguisher for alternate suppression or enhanced suppression. Another thing we want to look at is the gas line. So this is the main gas line coming down to feed the system. There's an automatic shutoff there, and we want to find that valve and make sure that valve is accessible and that it's in the open position and is attached to the suppression system. One other item we want to look at, if we have the possibility, would be to get on the roof and look at your fans. You can hear the system running right now, so we know that everything's being evacuated, but all that grease that you're producing ends up traveling through the ducts and goes up to the roof and is exhausted through a fan. So we want to go up on the roof if we have access, and we want to look at the fan to make sure that the fan is clean, to make sure all the wiring to the fan is intact, and also that there's no grease that's being overrun and dripping on your roof. Your fan should have a catchment on that, and we want to make sure that's in place. That's another hazard for us, is to make sure that all the roofs are clean and grease isn't being spilled on the hoods. So while on the roof, another thing we're going to look at with the hood is that it's easily removable. It's required that the fan be removed during cleaning so that the duct can be cleaned. And one of the most common ways is to hinge a hood. And so that way the hood can be tipped back, they can pressure wash down through the duct, they can pressure wash the fan itself. If it doesn't have a hinge on it, it still has to be easily removable, either by removing screws and then being able to pick the fan up and put it onto the roof. When that happens, sometimes those electrical lines are stressed, so that all has to be in flexible electrical conduit, and we want to make sure all that is intact. So here we are in the back corridor of El Morro, and in this restaurant, this is the secondary required exit. So as you exit from the dining area, you come down through this corridor and we exit out this way. So another thing we want to look at is we want to make sure this corridor is clear, that there's a clear pathway for people to exit if they can't exit out the main exit. So as we walk down through here, we'll see that it has an exit sign as it's supposed to, and we'll test these to make sure that they are illuminated and operational with battery backup. And again, for the secondary exit, you'll probably have to have panic hardware, so we want to make sure the panic hardware is operational and that the door swings to the full open position. As we come out, we want to make sure that there's a clear path of exit all the way out to the public way, and it's unobstructed and clear for everyone to exit in an emergency. While we're back here, one other thing we want to look at is that we have clear access to all of your disconnects. So if you have electric meter back here, we want to make sure that it's accessible for shut off. And then out in the alley or wherever your gas meter is, we want to make sure that it is accessible as well as being addressed. So if we have to shut off the gas, we're shutting off the appropriate address gas. One of the things that we also want to look at when we're looking outside of the building is that we want to make sure that we have the appropriate addressing of the building. And so as we come up into the back, we're going to want to make sure that we have a visible address on the back of the building so that during an emergency we know we're going into the right building.
Okay, so give me a hand, just kind of point up there.
So somewhere in here on the back door or near the back of the building we should have an address, and it only has to be minimum 2-inch numbers on the back, 4-inch minimum on the front. And some of the other things that the fire department's going to be looking at is compressed gas cylinders. A lot of the restaurants have these cylinders for their beverage dispensing. We want to make sure those cylinders are restrained so that if they fall over, it doesn't knock the head off and then we have a missile. And also, right back here, we have their walk-in coolers. So we want to make sure that the door hardware is operational on the walk-in coolers and freezers, and that the emergency release from the inside is operational so that nobody gets stuck inside a cooler or a freezer. So we're in the main dining area of El Morro, and El Morro restaurant is protected both by a fire alarm system and a sprinkler system. So one of the things we'll be looking at in that situation is that we have our sprinkler riser here. We'll want to make sure we have current tags are in place and that all the valves are in the correct orientation as far as being open, and that there's no apparent deficiencies that we can spot out with visual. The alarm system, we'll take a look at the panel and make sure the panel's operational, and again we'll be asking for those documents. If you have a sprinkler system, we'll want a copy of your annual inspection report, and also if you have a fire alarm suppression or fire alarm system, we'll be asking for that document as well. Again, we're in the main dining area of El Morro, and as you look down through here, you'll see that the main dining has a number of seats, and so we'll want to make sure that you have a posted occupancy load sign. We'll do occupancy load measurements to get the correct occupancy load. We'll deliver you an occupancy load sign, and then you're required to post that in a visible location near the main entrance. So if your building has a fire sprinkler system or a fire alarm system, we're going to require a Knox box, and the Knox box has all of the keys to the building. So after hours, if we have to come here during an emergency and the building is locked, we can just open this box, have keys to your building, we can open your door without doing further damage to the building. And that really comes in play if it's a false alarm. If the building's on fire, there's going to be a lot of damage regardless, but if there's nothing visible, we can just let ourselves in without doing any damage to your building after hours. So we're out on the sidewalk in front of El Morro, and like I said, El Morro has a fire suppression system inside, and so with a fire suppression system we have a fire department connection. This is where the fire department will connect to the sprinkler system and supply water to the building in the event of a fire. A lot of the restaurants in town now have bistro seating, so you're able to have tables and chairs out on the sidewalk, and with that you usually have some sort of a guard or a fence that is put around the sidewalk. And so we want to make sure that that guard or a fence, when it's installed, is not obstructing this fire department connection so that we have clear access to it. Another thing the fire department will be looking at, and it's one of our most common violations, is just the use of extension cords and power blocks. And so what we'll look at is we'll look at your appliances and we'll make sure that they're plugged in appropriately. And then we'll also make sure when we look down that they're plugged either into a receptacle or into a surge protected power strip without the use of an extension cord. We can't have extension cords running between appliances and the receptacle. Another document the fire department may request of you during our fire inspection is a copy of your emergency plan. The emergency plan is a written document explaining how you will evacuate the building during an emergency. If you have to evacuate the building, your customers will most likely scatter. However, you need to account for your employees, and this document will outline how that is accomplished. The emergency plan should be given to all new employees, and it should be reviewed on a regular basis with existing employees.
Hi, I'm Dave Woodruff, Chapter President of the Colorado Restaurant Association here in Durango, and also the General Manager of El Morro Spirits and Tavern. So we've been working in conjunction with the fire department here in Durango to show you what an inspection looks like and what they're looking for, and guidelines to not only keep your guests safe, but also your employees. I think one important aspect of hospitality is taking care of your guests when they're here. So making sure that whenever you have these inspections, it's for a purpose. It's not just for a administrative action or to take something punitively away from somebody. This is more of a learning process for us to all be safer and to be better at our job.
We hope this video has provided you information on what we're looking for during a fire inspection. If you need additional information from the fire department or have questions about your inspection, please contact us.